Okay, so that was earlier today on First Take, reacting to some words by Kevin Durant in terms of other countries catching up to Team USA basketball. Now we've had about an hour to let it marinate a little bit. I know we left some things on the table. Go ahead, Jay.
So I just wanted to crystallize, S.A., my point around the meat of what Kevin Durant was really saying when I made mention of things that Kobe said about European basketball players, regardless of race. Michael Jordan, Larry Bird have all alluded to this, right? I'm going to give you an example of what I think this meant. So who's your favorite player in the NBA right now, S.A.? Because you're my boy. We talk about ball all the time. Who's your guy in the league right now?
My two favorite players are Ant-Man and Steph.
Okay. So Ant-Man, right? Ant-Man, several weeks ago, literally said, I think the best tip Michael Jordan ever gave me, and you and I have talked about this, S.A., where, it's about me when I play with my back to the basket, not using my ass, but using my middle of my back when I post up so I can feel which way the defender's coming so I can lean and I can pivot. Now, Anthony is one of the baddest men we have in the game of basketball today. He has played an average of 72-plus games in his sixth NBA season. Sixth NBA season. A little bit of that skill development. Those are things that guys like Kobe and these guys were talking about. And look, it's not saying there can't be room for growth in your game, because there can be. Of course, each and every year you learn different things. But that's what these guys were alluding to. When people would say, hey, the Europeans are coming for you guys, that's what they're talking about. Now, it doesn't mean that NBA players here, American NBA players, they're still the better players because they're elite athleticism and they're still learning how to play. But it's more about the structural aspect of the game.
Well, Jay, what I'm saying to you is that as you break that down, no dispute there. But let's specify what Kevin Durant said. It's still on the bottom of the screen. All I hear is AAU is destroying the game. The Euros do it right, while the Americans do it wrong. Then he adds that line. It's a lot of BS with that. I can read between the lines. It's a shot at black American players. Because a lot of times they didn't just talk. When you hear people comparing European players to NBA players, it's not about their skill set or their ability and they stop there. It's about their fervor for the game and the fact that they come from nations that hold them accountable when it comes to effort. And whereas when we sit up there and we look at some of these players, whether it's All-Star Weekend, whether it's load management, whether it's, folks' attitude towards the media or whatever, these guys are looking at it as they're being attacked. LeBron alluded to that last year when he talked about people talking bleep about the league all the damn time. That's the real problem. In other words, alluding to it not being about them, it's being about how they're talked about and how their transgressions or, whatever word is appropriate is targeted as opposed to what's really, really going on. And so when you piggyback off of that, knowing that the players communicate with one another, and few people know how much they communicate with one another better than you, Jay, and you know that they share these kind of feelings, and then Kevin Durant comes out and says he can read between the lines, you're attacking black players, you see the kind of attitude cats come up with. You see people talking about all the money that they make, how fortunate they are, and giving the impression you never enjoy a modicum of this success in life if it were not for a basketball. And they talk about those players in that way. These are the kind of things they absorb. You know this as a former elite college basketball player, as a former NBA player, as a guy who covers the league both collegiately and professionally, who has a bevy of relationships. You can argue as to whether or not their feelings are legitimate. But what there is no debating is the fact that you know as well as I do that a lot of them feel this way. And so when they feel this way, you have to ask the question why. And I think that when KD brings up comparisons to a Luka or a Jokic during All-Star Weekend to highlight the fact not that they didn't give effort or anything, but that they're never broached about it, that they're never criticized about it. But the American players are being targeted, and you know that predominantly most American basketball players happen to be black. You are going to feel the way that KD articulated his thoughts. I understand it, and that's why I sided with him 1,000%, because I'm saying what he's saying is a legitimate feeling that a lot of these guys have, and we owe it to them to acknowledge they really, really do feel that way. They ain't bluffing about it.
I acknowledge his feeling. I hear it, but his feeling is wrong. His
Okay.
feeling is wrong. So I hear everything that you articulated, but the reality is when you say, you know, we're controlling the sport, doesn't dominance invite evaluation? Fragility
Yes.
avoids it, right? So
Yes.
this isn't attack Black American things, even though you may feel that way. It's you, the damn best players in the world. Best players in the world. They're attacking that. That.
Right.
But what I'm saying
Jay,
is, go ahead. The hijacking of the
what I'm
racial
saying-
aspect of it turns away from the point of what you're. Turns away
I feel
from the
you
main
on that.
point.
No,
You
no.
know what I mean?
That I'm with you. I'm with you 1,000% on that point. In other words, why bring it up? Because it detracts from the argument.
Yes.
That part is valid, but it doesn't make his feelings invalid. And it doesn't make it incorrect. What you're saying is, why go there? Because that's going to detract from the overall points that need to be made. That's entirely different than saying that his actual emotional perspective is wrong. He's one of those people that's experiencing it and feeling it. I don't play basketball on that level. I can't shine his shoes. I can't speak to what he's feeling. I can say that when you're asking him those questions, if you didn't ask it to the European players, if you never broached them about it, if you never criticized them about it, and your criticism and your cynicism is directed and compartmentalized and isolated for these great players who happen to be black, it does provide a level of justification for what he was saying. That's my point.
You're so good. You're so good. Now I see why you don't be on. Okay, I see it now. It's all you just argued the fringes of it. I see it. I see it.
Okay.
Okay.
We feel good now?
Okay. I'm just saying. Okay.
Okay. We'll have more First Take after the break. We'll be right back.
Okay, Fizz, so now after Memphis, right, you go to New York and you take that job. First of all, what were the biggest differences, besides city-wise and everything, between New York?
The team,
Just slightly.
Besides New York and Memphis.
there was definitely
What was the biggest difference besides everything?
Just a little different. The biggest difference was where the status of the teams, where the teams was at. New York was it was depleted. Like Chris Stapps was on the ACL. Coming back from an ACL that year, the rest of the roster, they had just gutted it to a place where I think our best player at that time was Tim Hardaway Jr. and Enes Kanter. And everybody else was just kind of like, just players on the roster that they were seeing if they could emerge again or if they could get better again. Emmanuel Mudiay, Trey Burke, guys like that. Lance Thomas was on that team.
Courtney Lee.
And we didn't even get to play Courtney Lee much. Frank Ntilikina. So that was our group, and I took that job because at the end of the day, so it was Phoenix. I had interviewed that year with Phoenix, Atlanta, Orlando, and New York, and I was about to interview with Milwaukee, and I got at the time I was hot. So, but New York was involved, and I was like, how do you pass on the Knicks if you got a chance to get that going, right? And so, none of where they were at bothered me. The plan that we came up with, I was all in on that, and I was like, this is the deal, this is the way to go about it. It just didn't come to fruition of how we wanted to build the roster and, the draft, all of that stuff. Losing all them damn games, donating my record, to get Zion Williamson or Ja. And we ended up, look, the one thing I say, and it's turned out to be true, R.J. Barrett has been the most steady of all of them.
Yeah.
And we got him at 3, but R.J. wasn't the super talent that was going to bring all of the, the hoopla with it. And that's, really we was losing the games for that, to get Zion or Ja. And that didn't work out. And then that summer, our people seem to have thought KD and Kyrie for sure was coming to us. Oof. That shit didn't work out. And then, ultimately we ended up, putting together a roster that, all of those guys in their individual cases, I think are solid players, but I didn't think the pieces fit very well. When you talk about the point guard spot being Elfrid, Payton, Frank Ntilikina, and Dennis Smith Jr. Your two, my Trier, older Wayne Ellington, and Damian Dotson. My threes was I started playing RJ at the 3, Marcus Mook Morris, and which was a 4, and Kevin Knox, who was a 4. And then I had who I liked, Bobby Portis and Julius. Taj Gibson was an older dude, and Mitchell Robinson. And so, you know, when you look at that roster in totality, solid players throughout, but when you put them on the floor together, the pieces for me just wasn't working. And, you know, the stubbornness in me, again, you learn as you get older and you're a coach, and if you really truly self-reflect on what you screwed up, if I could go back, I would have tweaked my style of play, but I was trying to keep up with the pace of the league. I was trying to keep up with all of the three-point shooting, you know, and how do I manufacture enough points to keep up with that kind of shooting when I don't have shooters? If you guys hear a helicopter flying over,
love it.
They're not coming to get me.
Can't hear it.
So Fizz,
They're not going to drop into the yard over.
With all that being said, when we played a game yesterday trying to guess your opening day starting lineup, and
We didn't play it. He played.
we couldn't do it. Do you regret taking that job, or is that something that when the Knicks, the Lakers, or something they call you
regrets.
answer?
No regret.
Yeah.
And I say this because, you know, do I wish that if I was doing it over again, I would have fought more to build a team early on and not cash in my record.
It's fair.
That's the hard part for coaches when you agree to the you know, I'm just gonna say it, tanking.
Yeah.
If you're not all on board with what we're doing to get this thing, because when you tank, you're supposed to tank to build something bigger, right?
Right.
It's not supposed to be a tank to
Keep
whatever
sucking.
happens. Just like that's not the formula, right? So when you look at and that's, you know, not to sidetrack, but when I was in Utah as a front office guy, I was on Danny Ainge's head. Give Will Hardy an extension.
Yeah.
He's donating his record to you right now. Give him an extension, which they did, and it was great. But that's the hard part for coaches is agreeing to that and trusting that I'm going to get to the other side of this tank. But for the totality of going to New York and how it all worked out, no. What I learned about myself as a man, as a human being, when I got fired, the space that opened up for my kids to come into my life and allow me to be more present and complete as a human being. The coach that I came out of on the other side, I'm 100 times the coach I was after I went through that experience, because it's true. Like, you remember that quote I had on our wall in Memphis about your character being forged in fire? That's the truth. That's not those ain't just words. You got to go through some shit to be what you want to be. And so, you know, I went through 2 really tough situations as a head coach. And, you know, even as an assistant, you know me, I'm a ring chaser. So I went to LA and tried to get another ring with Bron and them with that fucking
we didn't like that.
ridiculously unbalanced roster. And I went, you know, to Phoenix chasing a big 3 with that 3 that
Yeah,
didn't
no one's
fit.
giving Fizz a hard time on that. By the way, Fizz, we're up against it. I'm so happy I can see your face. Please tell Natasha hello for me.
Hey,
I will.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow night, baby. I'll bring
Exactly.
the vino.
Hey, wait.
On the
Okay.
association.